How are we doing? This Martin from Gardens for Life. In this video I'm going to show you about at least 10 plants that are really useful in many ways, and we can use those either as food or some of them just for medicinal purposes. So let's take a look in the garden behind me. Before we go, if you want to support us, you can buy some from our online shop. We have cuttings and plants and online courses and also homesteading workshops coming up. So take a look, I'll put a link below. Any support is highly appreciated. Thanks. If you can think of any other plants, please let us know in the comments below. So as you can see, we're starting to do our path now with wood chips. We're covering it. It looks really nice and neat and keeps our feet dry. So I'm actually surrounded by all kinds of useful plants in this garden here. Now we'll start with good old comfrey. Comfrey is definitely a useful plant. In many ways, you can use the leaves either to mulch your fruit trees, which should be very beneficial to the fruit tree because this plant actually takes up minerals from deep down in the soil that other plants, even fruit trees, cannot actually reach. So it's a mineral accumulator. Also, you can use the leaves to make a poultice or make a cream for cell division. It helps when you have a broken bone, for example, or a sprain. So it's also known as knit bone. Comfrey is really good for the bees too. It has really nice ornamental purple flowers as well. You can grow it easily from a root cutting. And if you're interested in root cuttings, we still have some available. And the next plant is lemon balm. One of our favourite plants to make tea from. We even made a wine from lemon balm actually. The leaves have a really nice aroma. So you can make a tea. It's also really beneficial to you, especially as an antihistamine, and it also flowers and attracts beneficial insects to the garden as well. As I said, we'll try to spend less than a minute at each of these plants because we don't want the video to go on for too long. And we also have lovage as well. Lovage is a really nice perennial herb, and mind you, most of the plants we're going to visit today are actually perennial. So this has a really nice flavour, especially in soups as well, and it's also very beneficial in many ways to the human body. Very easy to grow from seed as well. What else have we got here? Before we go on to the other part of the garden, I'll show you the German chamomile. This is also perennial. This has overwintered now. And it also will grow from seed. It'll self-seed. I can't show you the flowers because they're not out yet, but German chamomile is really good to reduce the symptoms of a flu, for example. We also have thyme. This is English winter as it happens, so you can see it's doing really well, and this time of year it isn't quite as full as it could be. There are plenty of leaves available for cooking soups especially, or even for making a tea or putting on top of your fried eggs. It's especially beneficial to the bronchioles or the lungs, and it helps to clear out mucilage as well. Same as the great mullein, which is over here. The great mullein leaves can be made into a tea, and they're actually really soft. It's actually also known as cowboy's toilet paper, which I'm not sure about why, because it's a European plant. Maybe the Europeans brought it to North America a few hundred years ago, and maybe it naturalized there, and that's where the term comes from. As far as I know, there wasn't any cowboys in Europe. Not the traditional cowboy that we know of in westerns, but it's very beneficial to the lungs, making a tea from the leaves, and you have flowering stalk in the second year, so this is a biennial. This is actually one of the only plants that we grow here that is not a perennial plant, but it's definitely worth having. It also self-seeds very dependently. In the first year it just grows leaves like this and just builds up its strength for the second year, which it'll flower in. So it makes a big, huge, tall flowering stalk, 2 meters tall, in some cases even taller, and it has lovely yellow flowers, and it attracts beneficial insects too. And the flowers can be used for to make an oil, an infused oil for ear medicine, so for earaches. So it's actually a multifunctional plant. And of course we got kale as well. Kale is also in some cases an annual, but we also have some perennial kales that keep on growing, and you can take cuttings from kale and just stick them in the ground. And it's a very useful plant indeed. I made a video about kale just there last week, so if you're interested in knowing more about kale and overwintering it especially, take a look at that. These ones you can see are going to flower, so you have all these little broccoli-like heads. They have a very similar flavour to broccoli, as it's all brassicas anyway, after you overwinter them. So we're actually cutting these back now throughout the garden. You can see here we have some red Russian kale here and here, and those are going to seed. So we're going to cut those back because we don't want the seed spreading everywhere in the garden. But we will keep a couple of patches of them, just self-seed year after year without having any extra work in reseeding them. But of course kale is very beneficial. Some people even say if you eat it every day you'll live forever. Maybe not quite, but it's definitely a very useful food to have, and it's really good for sautéing or in soups again. We even like to nibble on it raw sometimes when we're walking through the garden, and these are really tender. It's nothing like cabbage at all. These leaves are very tender, especially the red Russian kale and the Taunton Dean kale and the Portuguese kale as well. So this is the Taunton Dean kale. You can see here, that's the kind of stem you'd get after 1 year, and you can get quite a substantial plant. And then you can take all these bits that are kind of coming off it here, that'll be a cutting. You just push that into the ground and you get another plant within a year, within a growing season. And it's also got very tender leaves as well, same as all the other kales that we like to grow here. We also like to grow lots of kale for our animals as well, so they love it, except for the cats. Unfortunately you can't get the cats to eat kale. They only want to eat meat, so they're carnivores. What other plant have we got here? Another very useful plant is feverfew. If you chew on the leaves, it actually is a preventative for headache, if you are inclined to have those. Also, it's really good for the flowers, and the leaves both are very good in tea. As a bitter, it helps to promote the production of bile in the body, and it has tons of benefits to the liver and other organs, and also it helps with the menstrual cycle as well, to balance it out basically. It has lovely white flowers with yellow middle sections in the summer, and those attract beneficial insects like crazy. Look at that for a great mullein plant. We also have Olympic mullein, which flowers even longer than the regular great mullein, but both of them flower for months and months upon end. And we've also got rhubarb. Definitely got to mention the rhubarb. It is a great way to grow vitamin C in cold temperate climates. You can see this one here is going to flower, and it is quite ornamental and attracts lots of beneficial insects when it does go to flower. Now these plants here are a little bit too small yet to support a flower, so I'm going to get rid of the flower just by removing it. Normally now I would leave the flowers. I'm happy enough for some of our rhubarb plants to actually go to seed, or even go to flower and then seed. But in general, when the plant is still a little small, those are only 6 months old now, and we're just gone through the winter as well, it's better to just let them bulk up a little bit first. You can see the stalks themselves actually contain quite a lot of vitamin C, which is why they're very sour, and that's why it's probably best eaten in a cake or a tart, or with some sugar or honey. What plant do you think this is? It looks like a leek, and it is in the leek family technically, like all of the alliums are. All the garlics are in the allium family apparently. And this is elephant garlic, believe it or not. Looks almost like a leek, and it does taste like a leek, but a little bit of a garlic hint to it. If you were to eat the leaves, you could do. And it's quite ornamental, you can see. It looks like a little palm tree. When we harvest the cloves, they're not as strong as regular garlic. The smaller bulbs, like regular garlic bulbs, are actually better medicinally, but they definitely all protect you from viruses and bacterial infections as well. And as you all know, garlic is very good for you. Definitely would want to eat a bit of garlic and onion every day if you can. You can see here is the celery right beside that. It overwintered very well. And the fresh stalks, the newly grown stalks, are really nice. You look at that. Those could be used in a soup, or even juicing them or cooking them with a dinner. You can add really nice flavour to your food. But they're also very beneficial as well. Celery is very beneficial in that one of the things it does actually reduces blood pressure. And I'm sure it has many other benefits that you can look up yourself. This is another plant that we have in all of our gardens. We like to plant it. This is yarrow, also known as soldier's woundwort, because you can take the leaf and actually just crush it. You can just even chew on it, or you can just rub it until you release the oil, and then you put it onto a wound, an open wound that you can stop the blood flow if you have nothing else to do so with. And cayenne pepper actually works the same way too. But if you can't grow cayenne pepper in this climate other than in a greenhouse, well, then yarrow will also do the job. The Romans actually used to use it back a couple of thousand years ago. And just right beside that is actually a sorrel, which has grown here all on its own accord. We'll let it go. We won't tear it up, because sorrel is actually quite nice to eat too, as long as it doesn't spread everywhere. A lot of the naturally occurring plants, like that we would consider weeds, are very useful. All plants are useful to somebody in the ecosystem, but the trouble is, of course, they would spread very rapidly, and we don't want the entire garden to be full of nettles and dandelions and sorrel, even ducks. But we don't mind having some of them, as long as they stay within manageable numbers. Just for comparison, these are actually leeks. These are not elephant garlic, but you can see there is definitely a difference, and there's no bulb in the bottom, of course. Nice to have some leeks finally. They did take about 8 months to grow through the winter, towards the end there. But I know leeks do grow very slowly, and it's hard to believe that they used to be as little as this bit of grass here, for example. You know. They do take off quite slowly, and eventually they'll grow. When you forget about them for a few months, you'll come back and then you'll find these giant leeks in your garden, which is always delightful. Here's another very useful plant. It's the fennel. These are perennial bulbs that actually grow year after year, and you can use the leaves fresh, or you can even dry them and use them in the winter later. But most of the time of the year, I'd say about 10 months of the year, we have fresh leaves available to us, just because we have this little patch, and it self-seeds every year as well. So we get to collect the seeds and use those in our cooking if we wanted to, or in teas and herbal preparations. And you can see it's self-seeded over this way. So if you're interested in getting some bulbs, we still have some on our website. Fennel is a great plant to settle the stomach as well, if you have any digestive issues, and beneficial in many other ways. You'll have to look it up yourself in some herbal books. But it's definitely a great plant to have around. Can't make a video without the rooster going off. Give him a minute. Is that it? Was that everything? Is there anything else you'd like to say? He's not done yet. So this is currant, a black currant bush, and currants are tremendously useful. They're actually very versatile too. You can freeze them and dry them, or you can use them fresh. You can use them in baking, in cakes and tarts, or for cordials or wine. But either way, they're especially fresh or frozen. When you use them in smoothies, they're great for vitamin C, and it's a really good way to grow vitamin C in cold temperate climates, and it's an extremely reliable way to do so too. They always come ripe no matter what happens, no matter what kind of a year we're having. Even if it's not a great year, the currants always come through and ripen. We haven't had any issues with them, even with late frosts. The flowers actually don't get harmed from. So definitely a really good way to grow some fruit, and you can just take a cutting and stick it in the ground. So that's the handy thing about currants. They root very easily, same as willow. Almost just as easy as willow. Well, I hope you enjoyed the video, and if you're looking to support us, please go to our website. We'd highly appreciate your support. We have some fennel bulbs, some bare root plants, some cuttings, some seeds, and kale cuttings too. Lots of different bits and pieces, workshops, and an online course in no-dig gardening as well. And you can also join our membership if you're interested. I'll put a link below. There's many benefits for it. Any support is highly appreciated. Thanks again for watching, and we'll see you at the next one. Bye bye.